Welcome back to Rise of the Manhunters, so there's no time to waste.
Warning. Massive weapons system detected. Presence of
If I didn't know better, Tio, I'd say that you're looking very much forward to our Superman 64 playthrough.
I mean, Dwibs is doing it anyway, so why should I not be enthusiastic?
I'm doing what?
Okay, Tio. Honest question. Which would you rather suffer, Superman 64 or Dark Souls 2?
Dark Souls 2, like I said,
Dark Souls 2 is at the very least functional.
not just that, Jova. Any core difficulty problem that the Soulsborne series tends to have is the fact that it's still an RPG, so it's a matter of stats. You get stuck, you get jacked up, and then move on. Sekiro is the game changer because instead of relying primarily on stats, requires you to juggle your combo and actual equipment in an effective manner.
I wouldn't say it's quite as simple as just grinding your way through, but...
Well, I played, right? I platinumed the first game and, still managed to get through the second pretty much as fine, that method. So I don't know what to tell you.
What's your methodology, Pedro?
Well, I do some grinding. I also tend to, because grinding in Souls is a bit different than grinding in your typical RPG. So it can be a bit, it can be a bit time consuming.
I guess it depends on how patient you are.
I guess.
Honestly, Jova, the entire shtick is about knowing the level design. If you know that, essentially you know where the enemy placement is, where the object placement is, and you can strategize your way through. The problem with 2 Jova is simply the fact that it mixes so many things at the same time that actually managing things out becomes a chore in its own.
What I've been able to gauge from Dark Souls 2 is that it completely missed the point of the original Dark Souls, and instead of being legit difficult, it was just cheaply difficult.
Yes, in some aspects. On others, it's more the fact that it misses the point, even on a level design, because the first game was built with the idea of a Metroidvania game, a gigantic area that has gigantic place that has different areas that are interconnected with each other, and you can understand and puzzle out how each are reconnected. 2 doesn't really do that, and it's best represented by the fact that it gives you essentially the teleporting ability between bonfires from the get-go. It's
boy.
I mean, it's useful, but, it's just not optimal.
Yeah, what he said.
Yeah, again, once again, being these essentially the penultimate level, and technically speaking, the major final level that you get through, of course, this is the moment where the game throws everything in a kitchen sink at you.
For as much as I have enjoyed this game for the most part, I will say this, that for being a penultimate level, it doesn't feel like it raises the stakes that much. Okay. Let me put it like this. In the sense where I feel like this should feel a lot more climactic than it actually does feel.
Yeah, that's the problem with the fact of the game being rushed to meet the deadline with the movie. The fact that it's most of the plot is essentially on rails. The twist is you basically you can call the twist for like a mile away. And there's the fact that the enemy variety, becomes stale pretty quickly, despite being creative enough to take inspiration from the mythos of the Green Lantern and all. Again, I just legitimately would have seen this game be much more successful, if there was much more time and the money poured into it. I mean, it is compensated by having an actual decent performance for the most part. So there is that, because Captain America Super Soldier has essentially traded away optimal performance for, actual entertainment in playing it. So at the end of the day, I guess it's where you draw the line on that.
Yes.
Also, much like with a lot of shooters, or similar shooters, actually aiming with a controller for this precise places where you need to aim your ring is kind of a pain in the ass.
Can you hear me? Killowog.
Alert. Scanning has detected previously unknown weapon.
Oh, great.
Potential. Orders updated.
Hey, Dwibs.
Top priority.
Yeah.
How funny would it have been if the Green Lantern ring was voiced by Jennifer Connelly here?
Okay, but keep scanning for Killowog. You find him, let me know.
Well, actually, it still would have been something just as boring as the whole thing.
Well, Dibs, it's like how she voiced Spider-Man's suit in Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah, I'm on my way in now.
Far from home.
Yeah. No. Homecoming. You remember, she voices...
And he arranged for Killowog's
Far
capture.
from Homecoming.
Killowog is dead.
Far from Homecoming.
Get in line.
You know what's also fitting is like, well, she plays an android in Alita. Like I said, Jennifer Connelly, doing what she's best playing, a robot.
Well, actually, if I remember correctly, Connolly's character is not an android. She's a human, actually.
I thought she was an android.
I don't think so. She literally gets kind of turned into one by the villains, but who cares? They didn't bother actually making her character compelling, so we experience no tension.
Alright, next up, it's this minor hallway. Essentially, after beating the shit out of the enemies, there you go, favorite pastime, you will need to actually progress through the corridor while avoiding the actual laser wall that periodically will actually show up.
What's this? Somebody saying something bad about the Alita movie on the internet? Oh no!
Yes.
Pedro, for what time has been this one? I'm pretty sure.
Well, it's the year of hot takes, Jova.
Actually, sure, whatever. Moving on.
Come on, Geo, press that X button with all your might.
Actually, I did. If I didn't, it would have taken even longer.
Exactly.
Ring. Analyze.
Say please first, Al.
Manhunter Foundry. All Manhunter designations assembled here.
Ring. Inside those tubes is that yellow fear energy.
Analyzing. Affirmative. It is used to power newly built Manhunters.
Then these tubes, they should lead us to where they're storing the yellow energy.
Too much yellow energy is bad.
It's dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, technically speaking, the Lantern Core doesn't have a pink equivalent, only the closest is indigo, so
well, there's sort of the Star Sapphires who...
But that's more violet.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of times they're shown as purely pink. It's weird. Besides,
yeah.
Honestly, I feel like the Indigo Tribe are closer to being purple in their stuff.
Also,
well,
Zordon, that's pinkish.
Just be glad that the show did not actually use the same logic that we use for the Yellow and Black Rangers. Alright, those generators do the same thing that the enemies of a previous level do. If they actually catch you, you can't actually use your contract because you're tied up. But if I recall correctly, if you actually go in far enough, you sever the connection. But if I recall correctly, you actually have to destroy them. So let's try it. Come on. There we go. One. And two. Yeah, I mean, once again, the best strategy in the game. The best strategy in the game relies still about the 18 the enemies out of in the bottomless pits. I get the idea that if they actually didn't allow that, the game would have been much more of a chore. So probably someone in the testing department was like, okay, let's just allow this, but not for everyone. So. And again, at this point, having unlocked basically the max suit makes things much more easy because the hit stun is pretty big, and it also stun locks a bit the enemy, you know, far enough for you to chain your punches regularly. The only thing is that the mobility is practically absent, meaning that you need to make it count from where you are. Otherwise, you will not get too much far against enemies that are like ranged. There we go. Also, once again, while it is present, the music is so subdued in this game.
Oh yeah, I was going to say too, it's very atmospheric.
What
the atmospheric track,
exactly.
of course.
again, it's such a waste because you know, like I don't. Okay, not that the movie had like many samples, but that sequence where Hal Jordan learns to fly, I can remember the music of that one. It was kind of nice, but here they didn't even bother to make it, you know, memorable. I don't know why.
The score for the film was done by James
Sinestro, I'm facing a massive vault door.
Shut down its power source, then you'll be able to get through.
All right, let's open up the Titan Chamber from Batman Arkham Asylum because that's what it looks like.
Would not surprise me if they maybe borrowed a few assets.
I mean, it was coming out the same year, if I recall, so...
Well, the same year as Arkham City, not Arkham Asylum.
Didn't that Crisis on Infinite Earth movie? I just looked up the movie. Apparently, Crisis on Infinite Earth at least referenced this of the movie.
I think you mean Crisis on Two Earths, Dwibs.
It says Infinite Earth. So is that crossover TV show?
Oh, Crisis on Infinite Earths. That's a crossover TV thing, but that happened way more recently than back then.
It happened it happened basically between 2019 and 2020.
Yeah, well, apparently it referenced that this film did happen just in a
Yes, I did mention in another part, Dwibs. Essentially, this particular iteration of Earth still exists. You know, they only referenced it and that's it.
Hey, Tio.
There we go. Yes.
Since this movie was supposed to start off the new DC Cinematic Universe, did they eventually have a Justice League in this universe?
Who knows? We only know about the massive dimensioning of his Earth anyway. So.
An interesting thing about that crossover, actually. In terms of its actual airing here in Britain, it was a bit more of a mess compared to the States.
Oh?
Whereas in the States, all of the shows were on the same channel. Here in Britain, three shows are on. Most of the shows are on one channel, Sky One. But Batwoman is on E4.
Oh.
And the kicker is, while E4 is free to air, Sky One isn't. So if your family couldn't afford Sky, then you'd be a shitful.
Also, Dwebs, you know, that's not too different from, you know, when Marvel had a lot of its shows on different things, like Netflix, Hulu,
Hell,
and others.
There still are some Marvel things on Netflix.
Well, okay, but you know what I mean, like, nowadays things are getting, you know, more and more streamlined easily.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's what's gonna happen in the future anyway. Alright, this is a bit, not tricky, but more slightly annoying. You have to use the bomb construct, much like before, and plug the holes in it. But the floor gets electrified progressively, so basically you need to avoid getting hit. And of course, they also love to put the binders in these places. Ow.
That looked like it hurt.
To be fair, the bombs, much like in the first level, the bombs can get really useful against the Manhunters themselves, so there's that. Ow. I get the idea this would have been this faction particularly would have been much more easier if I was actually in co-op. Well, at least, you know, it would have been multitasking. But whatever, still doable. I was just searching if it was something, because this level, also being near the end of the game, also decides to drop the white canister that allows you to get a lot of XP. Very, very frequently, much more than the previous ones. So basically, if you still haven't upgraded anything at this point, you know, this is your chance. Oh great, 2 more holes to plug. Alright. But first, I need to destroy those pillars there in order to actually block the moving engine. I don't even know what this is for the Manhunters. Again, this is so puzzling. The Manhunters are supposed to be this mechanical, alien life, but it's like, again, purely mechanical, built by the Guardians of the Universe first. But they have concepts that would fit more inside an organic society. Weird.
Maybe they just don't get life well, despite their insistence that they do. There's a lot of things that they don't get well. So yeah, I recall.
But to be fair, I still prefer the direction we took for this one rather than again following the plot of the movie, because both the villain choice and the way things were resolved in the movie was just so not ideal for a Green Lantern origin story.
Honestly, Tio, between the movie and the comic books, it seems like the Guardians have a problem with one of their own constantly going evil here and there.
No shit. It's not even that, Jova. For literally everything. The only thing that the Guardians of the Universe were good for was not allowing the species of the Reach to actually enslave the rest of the galaxy, but that's literally it. And it's even retconned in both the New 52 and Rebirth anyway, so what gives?
The fact that they practically admit almost anybody into their ranks doesn't help either.
I mean, that I don't really see a problem. The problem is that they have such random requirements for that. Sometimes they will be very more specific. Other times will be like, oh sure, you can go, buddy, go ahead.
And then there was their new Guardians plan.
Not just that, even like I forgot the specific name, the Omega Lanterns or Prime Lanterns, I forgot which one. The one that it was like a more specialized part of a Green Lantern Corp, but only ended up essentially getting in the way. And during Final Crisis, one of them was possessed by Granny Goodness, so great job. Alright, let's power up the reserve. I think there you go. Oop. Yeah, combining also what we were saying before about also the lack of music, because the music technically is present. It's just not audible nor memorable at all. A good game can actually create decent atmosphere with little to no music at all. So I wouldn't even mind that. The problem is that, again, this one actually would benefit actual music pieces, for sequences like this. Again, go, for example, this is the Manhunter, more machine-based, go for something like a Mega Man vibe, or similar to what Yoko Shimomura did for Space Paranoids in Kingdom Hearts 2, for example. The problem is that, again, they do just instead these very, not subpar, but very pulled back, type of score that ends up being not memorable. Not even the one of the boss fights. Again, usually, even in a game where the score is not present almost at all, usually the thing that you hear is that, oh yeah, but the boss theme at least tends to be, more memorable. No, not even this one. And again, it's a shame because honestly, the game has very good elements going for it. And again, it's also depressing that this is the only Green Lantern game ever done. Which again, it really shocks me. Not even in the Genesis and Super Nintendo era, there was one done, which would have been so easy to do.
I suppose that we could maybe count the DC Heroes Online.
Well, those are crossover. I'm talking about solo game, which again, it's a sentiment that's going on even to this day with the DC properties. Sure, we're finally getting the Suicide Squad game. Like nobody saw actually that coming back, but that's literally it. No, it's mostly just Batman, and some crossovers.
Oh, I am so sorry that I forget who it was, but apparently, the Arkham team were apparently putting a pitch for Superman. Yeah, they were putting like a pitch for a Superman game, and apparently that got rejected.
Yeah, and supposedly that's also why and instead the reason why they got railroaded towards the Suicide Squad game is because that one had been in development hell and they needed a developer fast.
Okay, and don't get
But
me
again,
wrong.
it's not coming out until basically next year, so we'll have to see.
Also, I swear to God, you know, the fact that it's apparently supposed to be a games as a service type of game does not exactly fill me with the highest of hopes, considering how Marvel's Avengers turned out.
Well, depends on how they structure, you know, the type of service they want to use.
Okay, I have faith that Rocksteady can structure it good, but I'll just say this.
Well, okay, Jova, that's not sadly that's not really dependent on the developer, more like the publisher, because even if the developers had the best ideas and want to practice, if the publisher actually imposes them to do specific things at some points, they have no choice but to obey.
Okay, I'm just saying, if anyone could try to make it work
Okay,
despite...
that's cheap. Sorry, go on.
If anyone could try their best to make it work despite what the studio demands, I do believe it's Rocksteady. Even though I was highly disappointed with Arkham Knight, I still think they could turn out something good here and there. That said, I hope that we eventually do get that Superman game, because come on.
I want to not just Superman, again, like more solo games tied to characters from the DC universe. There's so much potential to do. And don't get me wrong, the Injustice games, for as much as I don't like the plots of those, are solid fighting games, because again, Ed Boon, much like we mentioned in the Mortal Kombat games, Ed Boon knows what he's doing and enjoys what he's doing.
Yeah.
So there's that, but no. Otherwise, again, the solo panorama for superhero games, and particularly DC Universe games, is so barren at this point.
It's not just DC, Marvel as well. Don't get me wrong, we're still getting good Spider-Man games, but it is criminal that we haven't gotten other solo superhero games like, oh, I don't know, a Black Panther video game.
I mean, I've been playing, I know it's not a solo game technically, but in terms of, video games in general, just comic book films, or comic books in general, I've been playing the Avengers one, and it's fun.
Dreams, we were almost hold on, Jova. Also, Dreams, we were talking mostly about solo release video games, something comparable to how, say, Sega did publish the MCU Phase 1 games. But in general, Jova, you know, most of them were really bad, but you know, at the very least, they tried to make solo games.
There were
instead of like saying, oh, a compilation or something.
There were like two good ones, though, the Iron Man Wii version port game and Captain America Super Soldier.
And 4 for the DS.
Oh yeah, that was good as well too.
Because way forward.
Yeah.
You will not proceed.
All right, this is much like in a God of War game. You have basically are on this elevator sequence where you have to repel all enemies while the elevator is going down. And one of the new constructs that you can get is a jet fighter, which acts as basically a large area missile that destroys everything in its path. So it's again a very good thing for crowd control. Or you can just do this. I mean, I'm not stopping you from.
Yeah.
Everyone get in line. There's room for everyone.
Yeet!
The yeeting is strong in this one.
Single file, everyone. Bit by bit, you must submit and follow down the.
But again, to be fair, the enemy variety allows to have enemy with shields, so it's not super easy, and it's not like the only way to dispatch enemies for this kind of worlds. So at the very least, the game has a bit of self-aware to not allow you to cheese away every single fight.
Mm-hmm. How long is this elevator shaft?
It's like in Spider-Man Edge of Time, Drova, where the Alchemax building, by all calculations, should be taller than the Mount Everest.
Yeah.
But no, Jova is also right. Like even on the Marvel side, aside from Spider-Man games and like quality aside, the idea of the Avengers game, Marvel is mostly reliant these days on
Crossovers.
like actually but not just that. Crossover specifically on the gacha side for the mobile market, which I'm actually playing one of them, Contest of Champions, which has been active since pretty much 2014, and it's still going strong these days. But they also have like a couple running at the same time, like Puzzle Fighter. There was one starting with the early phase 2 of the MCU, essentially, which was called Marvel Avengers Alliance, which I was playing through Facebook. It was actually promoted a lot as a Facebook game, but it was really good, actually. An actual gacha RPG with a lot of strategy poured into it. The problem is that it was shut down essentially around the time the Doctor Strange movie was around in 2016, mostly because the company that was tied to it, forgot what it's called, essentially Disney decided to shut it down on its own because they were not seeing profit in general, even though Marvel Avengers Alliance was still actually highly profitable. It was essentially an effect done by a bigger cause. But again, I still actually enjoy playing that, and even stuff like Contest of Champions is actually pretty good. It's actually a fighting game. So I get the idea that Marvel is mostly reliant on a safe side these days, for these kinds of things, rather than potentially having an experiment, unless it's in a minimal way, like what we tried to do with the Avengers with its questionable results.
That was the bad kind of experiment.
Well, to be fair, as Dweebs also is there to testify, there is an actual audience. The problem is that they were aiming a bit too high. There's that.
Not only that, but I wouldn't hold my breath on Marvel continuing to support that game. Square Enix Seaver.
Well, that too, Jova, but that's for time to see. I was talking more about the present. Despite
and it's already lost so many players in profits.
Despite the super bad reception anyway, eventually, because of the complaints, DICE managed to make Star Wars Battlefront 2 in a much more presentable state, and that was only for the multiplayer. Technically speaking, the single player had no fault at all.
That's the thing, though. That game hadn't lost as many players and was selling at a loss like Marvel's Avengers is now. Okay, there's sort of a difference here.
Oh, come on, I just finished a horde!
Sorry, Tio, here's some more!
To be fair, those are the two bigger types of enemies, so I can understand them pulling them at the end.
But anyway, though, okay, it's a bit different. Okay, Star Wars Battlefront 2 did have a lot of cool stuff, per se, in it. And here's the thing, though. It did get to the point where EA did have to cave and listen to stuff. But that's the thing, though. Star Wars Battlefront 2 was the kind of game that, has, well, they were able to add on stuff that made people come back, in addition to fixing the cardinal sins and problems here. Marvel's Avengers, though, unless they have, on another campaign or, add in
that's
some...
kind of what we're doing with the characters that are adding. Each character comes in with a mini-campaign built into it.
But here's the thing, though. There's, so far, just the one extra campaign planned so far, though, to which point the problem is, by that point, the problems haven't been fixed that much. So, here's the thing. By the time that they do make those changes, it may be an example of too little, too late. Whereas with EA's Battlefront 2, well, for some ungodly reason, that one had still some potential, and, okay, remind me, did that actually bring the players back still? I know it got people to stop.
Technically speaking, yes. There's also the difference, Jova, that Battlefront 2, while having a single-player campaign, was mostly built with the idea of multiplayer in mind, while Avengers tried instead a different approach with the idea of building mostly single-player, but stuff that will require online and potentially co-op to do it.
It is...
So it's not something as immediate.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as... Okay, it's not as bad as Anthem.
No, dude. I'm not saying it's as bad as Anthem, but it is basically copying the Anthem style of play, giving you quests and single-player stuff, but also giving you online multiplayer stuff, you know, and of course forcing you to do a hell of a lot of grinding. And that's one of the biggest problems here. Unless the studio actually wise up and, you know, get rid of the grinding stuff and, you know, the obvious pushing towards microtransactions, chances are they aren't going to likely get their audience back. Like, that's the thing. Battlefront 2 actually did address that big elephant in the room. Marvel's Avengers so far has not. And unless they do...
how long did the Battlefront 2 came out?
Oh, God.
Yeah,
like
so for the better or worse Jova, we cannot do anything but just wait and see for the conclusion.
Okay, look, I'm not saying that it's impossible that Marvel's Avengers might be able to turn around. I'm just saying that knowing the company's in charge, I'm not holding my breath here, because Square Enix, whenever something starts to fail, they often bail on it.
Nah, despite not just that. That's more obvious. But you know, even for the more despite technically speaking not gaining the audience where it was supposed to, they didn't give up on the CDNT until pretty much the beginning of last year. You know, and that's when, and then it was basically even the point of the. When the pandemic kind of started, so they had the idea that you know, less audience would have gone to the arcade machines, and it's not like we just canceled already the project. They allowed it to end on a good note anyway.
In regards to that, though, that was them understanding the pandemic going on, and fair, 14 and Dissidia were, you know, their own home stock here and there. Marvel's Avengers is something that is not entirely something their own, and not something that they make all the big bucks on.
Boss time.
Oh boy, here we go.
Because, oh no, it might be. Could it be? No, Killowog is inside it.
What the hell?
Ryan, you could have done another take for that line.
Bioclassification. Top secret. Codename. High Master.
Oh.
Earthman, it's time for you to die.
Ammon, sir?
My father's ring was always supposed to be mine.
Yeah, that's this guy's motivation. The Advent is jealous, and therefore is attracted to the yellow light of fear. Even though that's not how it works, so he should be having the orange lantern of greed.
Well, okay, to be fair, greed is not so much, you know, a thing that always comes with jealousy.
Desire for something else, Jova, that's straight up.
Well, okay, his thing seems to be more jealousy, which there's not really a specific lantern color for.
I'll save Killowog and still defeat you.
And to be fair, it's kind of somewhat similar to Sinestro's backstory in some cases, where he takes up the yellow ring out of jealousy of Hal Jordan anyway.
The jealousy that Sinestro tends to have instead about the methods rather than, you know, just the capacity of Hal. He always, the gimmick of Sinestro is that he constantly underestimates Hal because he thinks he's so puny. But otherwise, you know, the only thing that he's jealous about is the methods employed and the fact that he gets rewarded for it. Anyway, this is pretty straightforward. Okay, Dweebs. Let's see. Where do you think are the weak spots? Oh my god. Well, it's irrelevant because the game just told me. You know, games, I'm not completely, you know, blind. I can actually see where the weak spots are.
But you see too, it's this game is ahead of its time, and it's an accessibility setting.
Even so, it doesn't have it like on an audio level, so it's a bit, you know, it's even redundant. On a visual cue, there's already the fact that, you know, they fucking glow. It's even more than in a Zelda game where it's just the eye that showcases. You know, it's like in occasion where if the eye actually glow.
From far away, those things look like giant R2-D2s throwing into that thing.
Anyway, there we go. I need to chuck bombs into each of them in order to have the legs, you know, fall. And then at that point, if I recall correctly, I would have to attack the central, you know, the central plate that has Killowog in it. And when I get the health bar depleted, I should be able to rescue him. Thankfully,
do you throw that into its crotch?
Thankfully,
Yes.
this is not an escort mission, so you don't have to worry about Killowog's health. Thankfully. Here we go. And to be fair, you can, if you know what you're doing, you can solve this fight relatively, you know, fine enough. Oh, great! Now we start adding minions to it. Because that's not distracting at all. Well, okay, I get the idea that it's, you know, it's supposed to be distracting, but, you know, I get the idea that the fight might have been just challenging enough, not super difficult, but, you know, with the enough level of challenge without having to deal with this shit. It doesn't even help that the High Master does the attack that some of the higher level mooks, mook levels tends to have, like that black hole that you saw just sucking me in, meaning that, you know, they even reduce your mobility if you're not careful.
But of course.
So yeah, the basic gist of it is just stick to the ass, or at least to the back, and bust the kneecaps. Because that's how Al rolls, I guess.
When his friends are in trouble.
And he's not a psychopath.
Ooh, they're cold.
I was just wondering
yes,
who they're gonna get if they have for a new Green Lantern, because considering...
Well, do we know the casting of the actual new Green Lantern movie?
Wait. Oh!
Is there a new one already?
Yes,
yeah,
but I mean, in production, in some kind of production, yes, we don't know anything about scheduling, but we do know that it's being done, and if it includes both, I forgot the name, but he has like two lanterns, not just one.
Supposedly, this one will focus on Hal Jordan and my personal favorite, Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
You know, Jon Stewart, the guy who a lot of people were probably more familiar with thanks to the cartoon. Like, okay, I do have to agree with Linkara. Never did get why Hal was considered the definitive Green Lantern.
Because it was the first after their invention. I think we discussed this in one of the previous parts, but simply put, Jova, it was the first done after their invention of the mythos. Because I can tell you, for example, I personally grew up with Kyle Rayner, so I consider him the one. So I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, my point exactly, though. I mean, like, well, I mean...
I'll simply put, it's just, you know, the first, so that's why we're considering more, you know, iconic.
It's just, you know... I mean...
That's not even, that's the thing with Jova. If, that's why a lot of people still consider Dick Grayson the first and more important Robin, despite the fact that he changed to Nightwing, and they tried so hard to make Tim Drake more the face of being the new Robin, so there's that.
Well, that one makes more sense because, you know, Dick Grayson is Nightwing, so by all means, let Tim Drake be the iconic Robin, you know? Now, okay, now to be fair, in movie adaptations, the idea is still to have Dick Grayson at least start off as Robin here and there.
It would be a real shame if its premiere in the DCU would be him already dead, now wouldn't it?
Actually, I still believe that one is Jason Todd. I'm sorry. That screams a death in the family.
Yeah, but definitely death in the family.
But it still begs the question: where is Dick Grayson? Where is Nightwing? So.
Yeah.
I guess.
Maybe we'll see that in the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. Who knows?
Still, that doesn't excuse this horrible treatment of Jimmy Olsen, though.
Yeah, that too.
Oh.
Poor Jimmy Olsen is still dead.
Why even bother making that guy Jimmy Olsen if you're just gonna kill him right after?
Because especially because he doesn't even look like him.
To shock the audience.
Not only that, but
anyone can die, even main characters.
I have to say it, Jova. To subvert our expectations.
If they wanted to subvert the expectation, they would have done something that Countdown to Time of Crisis did and gave Jimmy Olsen superpowers out of his ass.
Like, okay, here's
the expectations. Make it a good movie.
Dweebs, try to say that without sounding like you're in a tunnel, please.
So, okay, here's my thing, though.
Do about that, unfortunately.
Anyway, here's my thing, though. It's like, well, why did Jimmy Olsen go from, you know, being relatively Jimmy Olsen in Man of Steel to being Secret Agent Man in, like, the sequel or something?
Actually, Jova, he appears only at the beginning of BBS to get killed.
Yeah,
well, that's my point. That's my...
being in in Man of
He
Steel,
doesn't.
was he
It's
there?
not present in Man of Steel, Jova.
I'm pretty sure he was in Man
No,
of Steel.
we only see Perry.
We only
No.
see. I only remember Perry. I don't remember Jimmy Olsen being there.
I really recall Jimmy Olsen being in Man of Steel. Let me
Well, that goes to show how memorable that movie is.
let me check.
Come on, only one bomb, and then good to go. For fuck's sake.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's also another thing. There's sometimes this problem with hit detection where it was clearly throwing the bomb in the hole, but it wasn't connecting properly. But whatever, we're done. There we go.
No.
Fire in the hole!
Ultimate weapon.
Oh shit. How do you want to grab your friend? Yeah, exactly.
So, I think the day is saved.
Hammond Sir is attacking Oa. You up for a little traveling?
And yeah, by the way, Killowog is just fine, despite the fact that we have been told that he was severely hit, and his life energy was being drained for the High Master. No, he's fine.
How do you think maybe you might want to arrest that guy?
Which one?
You know, sir, the guy.
Actually, he said in the cutscene, he's going to Oa to challenge the Guardians of the Universe, so that's why both Hal and Killowog are going.
I always conceived that as he was manning the robot by the looks of that cutscene.
No. Killowog was technically doing it on a subconscious level because he was enslaved in it.
Anyway,
Alright,
on
to the
the
ending
next part.
which is the epic conclusion. So stay tuned, I guess. See ya.
See ya.